Okay, so, okay, all right, here we go. Okay, hi guys. Hello again. My name is Emma, and welcome to Faith Night Friday. As you know, we already finished the book of Ruth, and we are going on to Samuel. So that's where we're at right now. So I'm going to be reading a kind of like a summary and actually two summaries, because I got one out of the book that I'm studying out of. Well, not really studying, but taking notes out of. And then I'm taking notes from also a movie that, not a movie, which I did watch a movie, actually. I did. I watched the movie of Samuel, and I even watched the animation of Samuel, like animated, like cartoons. And then I listened to one of those Audible series where the word scroll and they read it. So, and I've noticed when I do that, I kind of like it gets the information gets like reinforced, and it's like when every time I kept on reading about the book of Ruth, every other time I kept introducing about what it was about, it stuck in my head. So it's like you already knew what the book is about. If somebody were to tell you, oh, what is the book of Ruth about? And you already know in your head what it's about. Because you're reading, you're going over and over and over again and again and again. So that's something that you should maybe try to do, especially if you're trying to read a book and you don't understand like what it's trying to tell you. Read it, do your research, go on other platforms to try to find more information on it, and then it'll give you the more understanding of that book. Okay, so again, we're going to be reading Samuel, and there's a lot of chapters in Samuel. So I'm just going to start reading what I wrote down. Just put some light on in here. Okay, so these are some notes that I took, and these notes came from the book that I'm studying out of. So the notes and take it for the first book of Samuel is about one of the greatest prophets. Obviously, we're supposed to stop stressing and start praying. When feeling worthless, incomplete, and helpless, we only seem to see what we don't have and can't or couldn't do. And that puts us in a bad mental and emotional place. So much stress. Sometimes, we put so much stress on ourselves that we can't even eat. So instead of complaining and other things, aside of other things, or being mad at a person or being jealous of a person, what we should do is begin to pour out our soul to God, not to other people, because other people, they just have their own opinions, but they don't really help you solve the solution. We need to go to the one who has the power to answer our prayers and solve our problems. Don't hold on to the things you can't change, which just leads to anxiety and depression. Trust God enough to handle it. Cry out to Him. Then go in peace, that God will grant your request. Okay, so in this chapter, we're going to be reading about Hannah. And Hannah was the one who gave birth to Samuel. And as we go on and reading, you'll see that it's about her wanting something, but instead of her complaining and feeling resentful or jealous because the other girl, the other wife of the other guy she was with could have children, she couldn't. It's a whole series of things, but at the end, she decided, okay, you know what? I'm not going to go that route. I'm not going to get upset. What I'm going to do, I'm going to pray. And because she went that route and she went straight to the person or entity that could help her, her request was answered. Okay, so as we go on, we're going to be reading on and on. We're going to be reading over and over and over about all of this. So when we get to Samuel, the first chapters through 1 through 7 is the birth and the early life of Samuel. Of course, those are going to be the verses or the chapters where Hannah gives birth to Samuel. He grows up serving Eli, a priest. And then 8 through 15, this is where a gentleman called Saul becomes king. And then we'll read how that happened, how Saul was chosen to be king. And because of that reason alone, when he was chosen, there was a thing about Saul that it's like, well, why do you want me to be king, and why did you choose me? And because his whole thing, he wasn't really into it. It's not like he wanted it, but you know, when somebody offers you something, hey, but you'll get this benefit and you'll get that benefit. And hey, okay, why not? You know, sure, you want me to be king? I'll be king. And he went along with it. But there was a great responsibility that ended up costing his life and his sons as well. And we'll read that as well. So the Israelites wanted a king like everyone else, and they ended up choosing, Samuel ended up choosing Saul, which didn't really, he went on for a while being king, but at the end it just didn't go good. So 16 through 31, David is also found by Samuel because the Lord told him after the disobedience from Saul and everything that he was doing, God didn't want Saul to be king anymore. So he told Samuel, you need to go find somebody else because this guy ain't doing the job. He just ain't cutting it. So Samuel ended up finding David and anointed him, and he was a shepherd boy from Bethlehem. Saul ends up liking David and takes David in, kind of like a little sidekick, kind of sort of say. And David ended up being a little bit more like aggressive in his dealings, that Saul ended up becoming jealous of David, and then he wanted to turn around and get him killed. He wanted to kill him. So he had all these, soldiers and everything, tried to conspire and, to find a way to join him into killing David. But of course, that didn't happen. And what ended up happening was Saul and his sons were the ones that ended up getting killed in a battle. And then after they had died, that's when David became king of Judah. So the book highlights the importance of obedience to God and the consequences, and that's a big word, consequences, when we're disobedient. Because when God tells us to do something and we really don't follow through on it, it's like we're going to feel it. We're going to feel the effect. We might not get our heads cut off or, burned to the stake or, anything like that, or somebody, trying to kill us. But the consequences, you'll feel the effects of what will happen because you didn't listen. But thank God we live in the day and age where Jesus took our punishment and everything and sacrifices, where our accountability won't be that severe. It can be. Don't get me wrong. It can be. But for the most part, in this day and age, we get away with a whole lot. So just be careful, if you do hear God telling you, speaking to you, be careful how you answer. Be honest too. If you don't want to, let God know. Nah, I don't think I wanna. But do not ever promise to say, yes, I'll do it, and then not do it. Because, no, I never promised anything. I'll try. I'll give it a shot. I ain't promising I'm going to do it. I know. Because if all fails, you don't want to feel the wrath of God on you. That's for sure. Okay, guys, so we're going to jump in, and we're going to start reading the book of Samuel. So, Elkanah and his family of Shiloh. There was a man named Elkanah from the tribe of Ephraim, who lived in the town of Ramah, in the hill country of Ephraim. He was the son of Jeroham and the grandson of Elihu, and belonged to the family of Tahu, a part of the clan of Suf, Suf. Elkanah had 2 wives, Hannah and Peninnah. And Peninnah had children, but Hannah did not. Every year, Elkanah went from Ramah to worship and offer sacrifices to the Lord Almighty at Shiloh, with Hophni and Phinehas, the two sons of Eli, were priests of the Lord. Each time Elkanah offered his sacrifices, he would give 1 share of the meat to Peninnah, and 1 share to each of her children. And even though he loved Hannah very much, he would give her only 1 share, because the Lord had kept her from having children. Peninnah, her rival, would torment and humiliate her, because the Lord had kept her childless. This went on year after year. Whenever they went to the house of the Lord, Peninnah would upset Hannah so much that she would cry and refuse to eat anything. Her husband Elkanah would ask her, "Hannah, why are you crying? Why won't you eat? Why are you always so sad? Don't I mean more to you than to 10 sons?" One time, after they had finished their meal in the house of the Lord at Shiloh, Hannah got up. She was deeply distressed, and she cried bitterly as she prayed to the Lord. Meanwhile, Eli, the priest, was sitting in the place by the door. Hannah made a solemn promise. "Lord Almighty, look at me, your servant. See my trouble and remember me. Don't forget me. If you give me a son, I promise that I will I will dedicate him to you for his whole life, and that he will never have his hair cut." Hannah continued to pray to the Lord for a long time, and Eli watched her lips. She was praying silently. Her lips were moving, but she made no sound. So Eli thought she was drunk, and he said to her, "Stop making drunken shows of yourself. Stop your drinking and sober up." "No, I'm not drunk, sir," she answered. "I haven't been drinking. I am desperate, and I have been praying, pouring out my troubles to the Lord. Don't think that I am a worthless woman. I have been praying like this because I am so miserable." "Go in peace," Eli said, "and may God of Israel give you what you have asked him for." "May you always think kindly of me," she replied. Then she went away, ate some food, and was no longer sad. Samuel, the birth and dedication. The next morning, Elkanah and his family got up early, and after worshiping the Lord, they went back to Ramah. Elkanah had intercourse with his wife Hannah, and the Lord answered her prayer. So it was that she became pregnant and gave birth to a son. She named him Samuel and explained, "I asked the Lord for him." The time came again for Elkanah and his family to go to Shiloh and offer the Lord the yearly sacrifice and the special sacrifice he had promised. But this time Hannah did not go. She told her husband, as soon as the child is weaned, I will take him to the house of the Lord, where he will stay all of his life. Elkanah answered, all right, do whatever you think best. Stay at home until you have weaned him, and may the Lord make your promise come true. So Hannah stayed home and nursing her child. After she had weaned him, she took him to Shiloh, taking along a 3-year-old bull, a bushel of flour, and a leather bag full of wine. She took Samuel, young as he was, to the house of the Lord at Shiloh. After he had killed the bull, they took the child to Eli. Hannah said to him, excuse me, sir, do you remember me? I am the woman you saw standing here praying to the Lord. I asked him for this child, and he gave me what I asked for. So I am dedicating him to the Lord. As long as he lives, he will belong to the Lord. Then they worshiped the Lord there. So, of course, it goes on, to chapter 2. And this one has, my First Samuel. It has 31 chapters, guys. We have a long way to go. But, yeah. So because chapter 2 is going to be a long one to read, but I'm going to try to read it slowly, and try to get to as much as I can. And I'm trying, guys. That's why I listen to the Audible part, because these names, I don't know how to pronounce them. I'm like, oh my God. So again, maybe tonight or tomorrow, I'll go back and listen to the Audible, and it helps me to pronounce the names right. Because it's like, But one thing I did want to mention, because I've been seeing a lot of people on different channels, asking, they asked them, what Bible, what translation do you use? And a lot of people have been really reading the NIV, which is not bad. It's a New International Version, and it is good. I read, it's called Today's Version. It's called The Good News. And I like it because it's simple and I could read it easily. But make no mistake, you really, as much as you don't want to, you really should read the King James, because the King James is the closest one to the original scrolls of the Word of God. So it's always best to have at least 1, 2, 3 versions of what you're reading. And a lot of people said, they don't want to read the King James, it's too difficult and blah, blah, blah. I get it, it is. But you really need to, because you need to be able to interpret what they're saying. One word could be, like, for instance, I was listening to somebody, and he said, there's no such thing as scriptures. There weren't any scriptures at all back before Christ. So how can there be scriptures? Because it said scriptures. And I think he read this out of John. I think it was John 5. And he was like, but there's no scriptures. Go, yes. And I'm like, yes, there was. How can there not have been no scriptures? Maybe not scriptures, not like this, but there were scrolls. Those were the scriptures. And even before the scriptures, the scrolls, there was what? You would hear the stories of what happened. You had to go to the house of God and listen to the word, just like everybody did on the Mount when they went to go hear the Sermon on the Mount. He didn't give everybody a pamphlet, here, take this, take that. No. They listened to the word. So yes, there was scripture. So you can't say that there wasn't. There was. Even if you go to caves, or if you see Egyptian ruins, you'll see them literally draw out everything that happened back in that day. Maybe there weren't words, but it was a drawing. And you see that in caves and everywhere else. In ancient, a place that you go to, you see what they're talking about. Us, we were lucky. We had words. So, yeah, don't always think that just because you read a certain word in here that it doesn't exist. Yes, it does. That's why you have to read the King James, and that's how come you should read two other versions. The NIV is a good one. It's very simplistic. It really helps you to understand, but it doesn't give you the all information. And if you want any kind of revelation, you really got to know what you're reading. So always try to get at least 3 different translations. Okay, guys, so that's all I got for you guys today. So glad you joined me, and like a fish in the sea, so glad you caught me, and I will catch you in my next video. Bye, guys. I gotta check where this is at. It's a new camera. I don't know where the recording button is at.